The number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs are heading to Oxford to take on Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. I like Georgia's chances more and more as I dig into this game. And in this video, I'm going to explain why. There's a lot of reasons why I like Georgia's chances, but this is a really good Ole Miss team. And if you look at the numbers, they should crush Georgia, right? If the average fan digs into the numbers that Ole Miss has put up this season compared to Georgia's, you're looking up and down and saying, oh, okay, Ole Miss is clearly the better team. They should beat Georgia, right? And we're going to go over Ole Miss's schedule in just a second because it's kind of been a joke, but look at the numbers right here. So Jackson Dart, Ole Miss's quarterback, he leads college football in passing, 3,210 yards. His 21 passing touchdowns are tied for third most in college football. The Rebels are second in college football in total offense, earning an average of 555 yards per game, 7.7 yards per play. Both their tops in the SEC. They rank 22nd in total defense, giving up an average of 316 yards per game. Their defense has improved. They're still a really inconsistent team. I'm going to talk about that in just a second after I tell you or dig into more of these numbers, because they are second in college football in rushing defense, allowing just 82 rushing yards per game and 2.28 yards per rush. That's not a lot. They've also allowed just 4 rushing touchdowns this season. However, they are just 91st in passing defense, allowing 234 passing yards per game. I can tell you right now, Carson Beck is going to throw for more than 234 yards. That's just about a guarantee. They are 6th in scoring defense in the country, allowing just 13.2 yards per game. They rank 4th in scoring offense, averaging 42 points per game. So you look at that and they're just crushing teams, right? Ole Miss ranks 2nd in team sacks. They've got to the quarterback on the ground 41 times this year for an average of 4.5 sacks per game. So again, they do a lot of things really well if you look at the numbers, but then you look at the schedule. And again, this is another reason why I think Georgia's going to win this ballgame, because Ole Miss hasn't played a team like Georgia. Their best win, right now, in a big way, is South Carolina. They won that game by 24 points, but they start the season 76-0 over Furman. And this is a big reason why those numbers are there. They're very deceiving. Ole Miss is tops in the country in a lot of statistical categories because they rub Furman's face in at 76-0. Furman stinks. Middle Tennessee State, they're almost as bad. Ole Miss beat them 52-3 like they should because Middle Tennessee stinks. I know they normally stink. They're worse than normal, okay? That is an awful football team. They beat Wake Forest. Wake Forest is awful. They're awful. It doesn't matter. 40-6, that's what they should have done. They had the great Georgia Southern Eagles in week 4, right? You finally think they played someone they have. They get Georgia Southern, they blow them out 52-13. So the first 4 games of the season, they look like the greatest team of all time on paper because they haven't played anyone. And the first time they play an SEC opponent at home against Kentucky, who isn't good, and they drop the game. They lose to Kentucky 20-17. That was so embarrassing. That was awful. And I think at that point, Kentucky wasn't that bad. I think they got crushed by South Carolina, but they lost to Georgia. They didn't beat Georgia. They lost to Georgia by 1. That was a close game. They go on the road and beat Ole Miss. Ugly loss for the Rebels, but they come back, go on the road, I believe, and beat South Carolina like that by 24 points. That was impressive. Then they go on the road and lose to LSU. That's not a bad loss. LSU is extremely inconsistent, but it was a night game at Death Valley. They put a lot of pressure on Jackson Dart that day, and he was throwing the ball up for grabs. He should have had like 2 or 3 more interceptions in that game. That's what Georgia needs to do. Georgia's front 7, I think, should be able to get a lot of pressure. Ole Miss's offensive line is not very good. They held up pretty well against Arkansas, but Georgia should be able to cause a lot of pressure. I think Jackson Dart is going to make several mistakes if Georgia can dial up some pressures like they did against Texas and even in a way or two against Florida. But against Texas, Glenn Schumann was in his bag. He's going to need to be in his bag again to really disrupt Jackson Dart, because if they do, he will make decisions to put the ball in dangerous situations. That's exactly what Georgia needs to do on the road, is come up with some big turnovers. They're going to be tested vertically, so Georgia's got to get to them. They are going to want to test down the field, take shots, and try to take advantage of Georgia's secondary that's not as good as their linebackers and their defensive line, the front 7 in general. So Georgia's got to put pressure on him. If he's back there all day to throw, which I don't see happening because I just don't think they're very good up front on their offensive line. So I think it's going to be a real struggle for them. But if for whatever reason Georgia can't get to him and he's got time to throw, they're going to chuck it deep, as they should if he's sitting back there. And that's going to be troubling for Georgia, whether they're giving up big plays or giving up pass interference calls, which can tend to happen. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think both front sevens are better than their secondaries. I think their defense are similar. I think Ole Miss has a lot of talented players, but I don't think they're as good collectively as a unit defensively as Georgia is. Georgia's a better defense collectively. And I'm not saying Ole Miss has better players. I just think they have better players than their scheme, if that makes sense. Georgia's defense is better than theirs. Ole Miss has the better offense. But again, they can be inconsistent too. They didn't look great against Oklahoma for a while, and then they come back and they put up 63 on Arkansas. I still need to dig into more of that game. It's been a loaded week at the house. Haven't been able to really dive into it, but I know Jackson Dart had a monster game. Watkins, the receiver, they've got playmakers. They've got talent. I think their offensive line is going to really hurt them in this game, though, and that's one reason I think Georgia's going to win. But I just don't trust Ole Miss. They're too inconsistent. Like I said, you lose to Kentucky, you have a great bounce back a week against Carolina, then you drop a game to Ole Miss that you could have won. Would have been a great win. You could have won, but you lost it because you're inconsistent. Then you have a somewhat of an up and down game against Oklahoma. You won by 12. You get credit for that, but it didn't look great for a lot of the game. Then you come back and you have a great game, at least offensively, against Arkansas. I don't think that has anything to do with what happens next week. Georgia and Arkansas are completely different teams. I don't look at that 63 they put up on Arkansas and say, wow, they could really do that against Georgia. I just don't see it happening. I think it could be a low-scoring game. If Carson Beck doesn't turn the ball over, Georgia's going to win. I know they're beat up at running back, and I know they're mix and match on the offensive line, and I know the wide receivers have been inconsistent, and I know the tight ends have not been game changers, but they find a way to put drives together when they need to. I think Mike Bobo's done a really nice job this year. I do, and it's going to take me a while to gather my thoughts on that and present it like I'm not an idiot, because a lot of people love to hate on Mike Bobo, and they're going to look at the interceptions and connect them with Mike, and in a way you can, but they're mostly on Carson Beck. But I think Mike Bobo did a great job of switching things up offensively in the second half of the Florida game, having Carson go horizontally instead of trying to push the ball down vertically, where he threw those interceptions, making things easier, trying to get a little more creative, establishing more of a run in different ways. And they put up 28 points in the second half because of Mike Bobo's adjustments. And Carson Beck did play better and was more comfortable after that third interception. So he did play better at the end of the game. Anyway, that could be a whole nother video. But if Carson Beck doesn't throw interceptions, Georgia's going to win the game. If they just keep it simple, play safe, efficient football, let their defense win them the game, so to speak, they just have to find the end zone. They have to score touchdowns in the red zone. I don't think they're going to win the game with field goals. I think you're going to see several fourth down attempts. If they cross midfield and they feel like they need to, if it's fourth and short, I can see them going for it a lot in this game. Even though Peyton Woodring's been terrific, he may have to kick a big field goal or two towards the end if they are in that situation, but they're going to have to score touchdowns. And if they don't turn it over, they're still good enough, and they still have quality backs who can get the job done, and enough playmakers to get the job done, and a quarterback to get the job done. He just has to be smart with the football, not throw it into double coverage and see that zone defender that's there, and not throw the ball up as you're getting sacked. Listen, you got a punter who can boom it 60 yards. If you want to take a bad sack, that's better than throwing the ball up for grabs. Take the sack, live another day, and let your punter boom it 50, 60 yards, play field position, let your defense do the work. Sacks are not the end of the world. Throwing the ball away is more often than not right now with this offense a good play. The last thing Georgia needs to do is turn the ball over, and it starts with Carson Beck because they're not fumbling the ball much. I probably should have looked it up, but I don't know how many times they've lost a fumble this year that wasn't Carson Beck. I think every turnover this season has been on Carson Beck. If he does not throw multiple interceptions, I see Georgia winning this game, and they can still score 24 24-28 and still win this game. I think the defense should have a nice game over there. They'll give up a couple touchdowns, but right now I'm thinking this score could be kind of 28-21, 31-24 maybe if it's a little more high scoring than I think. But I think we're going to see a little bit more from Georgia's offense than we have the last 2 weeks. I think Ole Miss's defense, while they statistically can stop the run against the good teams, some of the better teams, they have given up some plays against the run, and they have given up big passing plays down the field, obviously, and the numbers definitely indicate that. So if Carson Beck can play controlled, poised, efficient football, he can have a really nice day. Don't turn the ball over, and I think Georgia's going to win this game, and they might win it by double digits. We'll see. They've got to go out. They've got to do it. But the more I dig into this game and dig into this inconsistent Ole Miss team that is very talented, and I get why they're, top 16 in the country, they're not better than Georgia. They don't have – Georgia's got the talent, the coaches, the experience, they're battle-tested. They can go out and win this game. I am not doubting Georgia. I can absolutely see them going over there and winning this game. That's what I expect to happen. It's up to Carson Beck to not turn the ball over. If he throws less than 2 interceptions, they can still throw 2 and win. They can still throw 3 and win. But I think the only way they lose this game, if they lose the game, you go look in the box score, he's got at least 2, probably maybe 3 more interceptions. At the end of the day, Carson Beck plays efficient football. Georgia's going to win the game. They're better defensively. They've got enough weapons. They've got the coaching. They can get it done, but they just need average quarterback play to get that job done and leave Oxford with a win. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm right. I think I'm right, but let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you over on Dawg Post.